Djokovic's loss to the 2024 US Open marked an event that hadn't happened in 22 years, since 2002 when Sampras won his last US Open title. This event is a full calendar year without any of the big three winning a single Grand Slam. With Federer retired, Djokovic and Nadal in their late 30s and facing constant injuries, we could be witnessing the end of an era.
How much longer can you three keep playing?
If you started watching tennis recently, or been living under a rock, you probably don't know, but the Big Three is a term used to describe the trio of Roger Federer, Rafael Nadal, and Novak Djokovic. For the past few decades, these three players have dominated the tennis world, broken countless records, and stolen the spotlights. As a kid, Federer was the one who got me into the sport of tennis. I grew up watching the Swiss maestro's elegant and effortless style, dreaming that one day I could play just like Roger. That day unfortunately never came, and to make matters worse, later I had to watch Nadal beat Federer over and over and over again. Then came Djokovic's unexpected breakthrough in the 2011 season, followed by years of total domination by the Serbian. These three had historic battles. To name a few, the 2008 Wimbledon final, and even though Federer lost, I have to admit that it is the greatest match in the history of tennis, well, in my opinion at least, and the 2012 Australian Open final that lasted a record time of 5 hours and 53 minutes, leaving Nadal and Djokovic like this.
The longest match ever in Australian Open history.
Among many other great matches, it would be impossible to name all of them since they played against each other 150 times. But just how good was the Big Three, really? Objectively speaking, one way to measure a player's greatness is by looking at how long they stayed at the number one spot in the ATP ranking. The Association of Tennis Professionals, or more commonly referred to as ATP Ranking, was created in 1973. Since then, thousands of professional tennis players have battled for a spot at the top, but only an exclusive club of 29 players has ever achieved the peak of the mountain. I plotted these 29 players on a graph, ranking them by the number of weeks that they stayed at the number one spot. Now, if you look all the way to the right, you find Nadal with 209, Federer with 310, Djokovic with 428 weeks, a combined 947 weeks at the top of the ATP ranking. Between February 2004 and February 2022, Andy Murray was the only player outside of the Big Three to be number one, and yet, he only stayed there for a period of 9 months. To put in perspective, until the date of this video, the ATP ranking has a little over 50 years of existence, more specifically, 2,640 weeks. This pie chart shows the percentage of time the Big Three stayed at the top of the ranking during this 50 years against every other world number one in history. The 947 weeks occupied by the Big Three represents 36% of the time since the creation of the ATP ranking and is the equivalent to 18 years and 2 months. I mean, 18 years is an entire career. Can you think of any great players who were just unlucky to play during this time? Sorry guys. But as most of you know, weeks as number one by itself isn't the most commonly used method to judge how good a player is. That's because the number one tells you more about how consistent a player is, but it doesn't consider titles. If you take Rafa for example, he was the king of clay for years, but out of the Big Three, he has the least weeks as number one. And that's because he couldn't be as consistent on hard and grass courts as he was on clay. So, what are other ways we can measure greatness? That brings us to the most used method, which is the number of Grand Slam titles of a player. The 4 Grand Slams, Australian Open, French Open, Wimbledon, and US Open, are the most prestigious tournaments in the world of tennis. And since the Open era started in 1968, a total of 54 male players have ever won a Grand Slam in singles. All 54 players are featured in this graph, ranked by their number of Grand Slam titles. As we scroll to the right, we'll see that the first 26 players are one-time champions, while only a select group of 12 players have ever won more than 4 Grand Slams during their careers, including players like Jimmy Connors, Bjorn Borg, and Pete Sampras. And all the way up here is the Big Three. Federer 20, Nadal 22, and Djokovic 24. To show the level of dominance these three players have over everybody else, if we combined all the titles of the first 41 Grand Slam champions in the graph, it would total 65. And the big three combined for a total of 66 Grand Slams. I mean, these are not your average Joes. These are Grand Slam champions, the best players of all time. And you would take every one-time champion, every two-time champion, every three-time champion, and every single four-time Grand Slam champion combined to finally surpass the titles of just three players. Yeah. The truth is that what we witnessed in the past 20 years was complete domination by the big three. These guys have been winning titles for such an extended period of time that it has never been seen before, and we might never see it again if I'll be honest. But even though it may seem like they're invincible, a new generation of players are finally establishing themselves, and even the greatest athletes must eventually face the passage of time. Federer has already retired at the age of 41, and with Nadal at 38 and Djokovic at 37, it's clear that the end is approaching. I was always frustrated to follow over the years Rafa and Novak catch up to, and in many aspects even surpass Roger. So I never imagined that one day I would actually feel sad to think that Nadal or even Djokovic could be retiring soon. But the fact is that they built this legacy together. Federer would not be the icon he is if he didn't have Nadal to battle against. And the same goes with the Nadal-Djokovic rivalry. At the end of the day, the Big Three chapter was full of drama, plot twists, and will forever be remembered in the tennis history books. And just like any well-written story, the Big Three had a magical beginning, reached its climax, and now it heads towards its inevitable ending. I hope you enjoyed the video. Please like and subscribe for more content like that, and I'll see you in the next one.